This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight for the virtual Talladega Super Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. As always, on a Monday night, so happy that you're with us on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince up top, along with Randy Cheneth. And Justin, a week ago, we saw Andrew Ferdinand take home a 6th win of the season, as well as secure, mathematically, the 2020 Icebreaker Championship. So as we head back to Talladega for the second plate race of the season, the championship is now out of the picture, and it'll be 2 weeks where the only thing that matters are the checkered flags.
Absolutely. It's the focus for many of these drivers to try and get a win, and this is the type of track where anybody can take home the checkered flag. With the draft, with the chance of the big one, and the amount of potential teamwork we'll see throughout today's race, we could see anyone come home with a win.
Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid for the NPHY.org 200. So pole position on this one's going to go to the 4. That's Bobby Terrell with a 53.376. He'll bring us to the green flag tonight, alongside with Ross Cato on the outside in second position. Brian Chambliss thereafter going to roll off in the number 3 spot. Trevor Valderrama will roll from 4th on the grid, and Galen to get him in through your top 5.
Keep an eye on the car in 6th position. Jared Mogart, good on the super speedways. He'll start on the outside of row 3, and in front of row 4 is Daniel Everhart and Michael Mosier. In row number 5 is Steve Sowa, along with Sean Kalis in P number 10.
He's hit it on through. Bobby Krug will start in the number 11 spot. Michael Kuczynski in P12. Steve Cunningham going to be almost halfway through the field. He'll roll from 13th spot. Tom Moreno back with us at a 42 Ford Mustang. He'll be 14th. And in the final car to take a time in qualifying will be Sam Nieto in 15th.
A lot of drivers taking revisionals today. David Washington in 16th, Kyle Kimmer in 17th, Eric Stanford in 18th. Rounding out the top 20, it's Thomas George and Jonathan Cattell.
Instead of it on through, Scott McClendon will roll from 21st in the 22 car, just beating out Kevin Pearson, who starts 22nd. Guy Brooks will start 23rd. Todd Novosad in P24, and then John Rodden is 25th.
Joshua Baird, 26th position with Jonathan Lawrence. Starting from the pit lane in 27th, Andrew Freenosh, the series champion this year, in 28th, and Steve Durham rounds out the 29 entries.
To look top to bottom at your LSR TV starting grid, we talk more about the Talladega Super Speedway, 2.66 miles in length, which means that tonight's 75-lap contest will get us to 199.5 miles of distance. Of course, this racetrack a little bit bigger and a little bit wider than the only other plate track we've seen this season at Daytona, a race that Nick Hulslander won way back at the start of December to get this Winter Series kicked off, Justin, and the 33 degrees of bank in 1 and 2, a little bit less than that, 32.5 down at this end of the racetrack, and 3 and 4 is what makes this racetrack so exciting.
Yeah, especially since there's the chance we see a lot of 3-wide racing. Many drivers were practicing that prior to qualifying to make sure they can run in a pack in that amount of grouping. You can easily go even up to 4 wide with how wide this track is compared to Daytona International Speedway. Should be an exciting one to see who comes away with the W.
Saw some new faces towards the top, and not only the practice times, but even the qualifying times as well. Some drivers season highs in Q, but again, you mentioned all those drivers starting at the back. A lot of times you don't want to be up in the mix early. We get set to see how this race plays out. As the pace car dives down and in, as always, want to let you know we're happy that you're spending your Monday evening with us on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Field in the hands of Bobby Terrell as we say, let's go racing from Talladega. Green flying in the air for round 9.
Clean start up through the gears, but you want to be on the bottom side for every start and restart because that's the shortest way around and the fastest way to get yourself up to the field. Already a checkup on the outside line.
You can see the outside's really falling apart, and there's that wide shot. You can see about 5-6 cars real tight together down on the bottom. And in the first car up top is going to be the 12 Ross Cato. Without that drafting support, Valderrama not really on his bumper. Looks like he's got Bogard with him now to try to give him some support, but it is an inside line advantage by 5 car lengths as they enter turn 4.
Sean Kalis is really dancing around in that 43 machine on the top line, really checked up everyone behind him. The amount of grip and amount of bobbling we've seen from some of the drivers in practice was pretty interesting. It's important to try and hang on to the track. It's really bumpy, especially in the tri-oval here, mind you. So that can make it difficult for some of these drivers to hold on to the race cars as the runs progress today, even in the pack.
And we'll see now that outside line trying to get back into things, but it's going to take a while as that top 3 breakaway of Terrell, the 25 of Chambliss, and an 94 of Gideon. Good advantage down the Alabama gang. Back straight away, they'll race off into turn number 3. You can already see towards the back of the back a lot of cars starting to space out. Now that top 3 breakaways been reeled back in by the rest of the field. And Adani Karam Eberhard, he'll go to the outside, jump up in front of Cato. And now he becomes the lead locomotive at the outside line that's charging up top.
And he showed when they were practicing in the packs prior to qualifying that he was not afraid to be aggressive. He was willing to make it 3 wide. It was about keeping things stable, though, off the corner. He really bobbled around a little bit. Already, some drivers are seeing this and saying, I want to drop back down the back straight away.
A lot of drivers decided that early in this one, but not even taking times in Cuba. Look at that, the 75 of Steve Soa. He's dropping back with teammate the 54. In fact, all 3 of those team cars down on the inside. Soa, Mosier, Valderrama all going to the back. So that takes a handful of cars out of this lead group. As you can see now, the 90, the 4 in the mix as well. It's a good shot of that 25 car of Brian Chambliss, who has been pretty committed to staying on the bottom line so far. Don't be shocked if you see those 2 blue and black fast forward esports entries of Gideon and Cato get together. But right now, the 12 car is stuck up top, and it is an inside line, 5 cars strong that all power by him.
We've seen Kalis nearly spin around in front of Kaczynski, getting very loose in the tri-oval. That's why you're seeing multiple drivers dropping back on the top line. He nearly spun that car around on the bumps. So many of the drivers struggling in the tri-oval early on, having to be careful on the throttle.
And that's obviously a concern. It's only going to get worse all night long. Drivers working 120+ degree track temps, and it's not really a racetrack that you typically think that you need handily at. Sometimes Daytona does have that in some of the hotter, slicker races, but as you make moves, you want a good handling race car. There's the 25 to the outside. So Chambliss jumps up with the 94. There's going to be a big charge for the race lead at the stripe. Eberhard still in front barely as he led that time through. The 25 should have Chambliss now gets the nose in front. The problem is the outside is not going to get a lot of speed up the hill into the corner. It's going to be the other way around right here down the back straightaway if they can get hooked up.
Absolutely. You have that much more speed because you're able to ramp it a bit off the banking as well as get a bit of a side draft off that outside wall depending on how higher up you are. That allows you to get that amount of speed down the back straightaway. And it's almost like you want to stay up there. Contact!
Oh, it's a 90 car. Eberhard's way down and onto the apron. He's sideways. He is going to be able to hang on to it. So much runoff room. You'll see he'll stay on the apron here in the tri-oval. Allow some of the traffic to clear. Now he pulls back up. bit of 3 wide, and Eberhardt avoids what almost would have certainly been disaster. That outside line came down a little bit. Chambliss came down, got into him, and Ollie Carr's lucky he's not in the fence.
And that was caused actually by a bump draft. You see from the 94 right there, that little bobble. He got a push from behind. The thing is, when it comes to the Xfinity cars, Evan, is it's so easy to suck up to the back end of the drivers in front in the corners, where it closes so much speed, where you have to basically go half throttle. If you go full throttle, you get easily sucked into the back bumper, and it just ends up hooking the driver in front down the racetrack. You'll see it just with the left front of the bumper, right on the corner exit. That shuffles him a little bit after the check.
And that was the onboard shot with the 94 of Galen to get him in, but those two drivers who actually were that bump draft gone wrong are fine. The 25 of Chambliss ended up going down to the inside line. He leads that bottom lane at the moment. He'd been working with teammate Kato on the outside, 1-2 up top. There is always an advantage in racing to have friendly faces, to have teammates. And, you know, I say friendly faces because you don't necessarily have to have a written alliance with anybody. A lot of these RSR veterans will give each other a bit more space as those two forwards go to the front of the field. Giedvid 1, Kato 2, but also out of plate track specifically. A car or multiple cars that you are committed to working with all night long is going to make your night a whole lot easier, and that's why we see those two cars up front like they are now.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously the strategy for them is stay in front. There's also the second strategy, keeping in the back of the field. We'll see many different drivers, mind you. Some of the Aegis drivers following that strategy tonight. Compare that as well with some of the Steel Horse Racing machines, a part of the same strategy towards the mid to back pack at the moment. So many drivers will discuss this before the race and figure out where do we want to be, because we don't want to also be in a big one in a race such as this.
Yeah, there are no quick repairs in real sim racing competition, so you get damage, you're going to be working with that damage all night long. And we talk about the draft being that great equalizer, and we saw so many drivers not season highs in the practice finishing result as well and qualifying. You can take a little bit of damage and be all right, but this race car needs to be aerodynamically sound if you're going to keep up at speeds as we race off at turn number 1 that come just shy of 190 miles an hour. The outside line, though, coming right back into things, and it is Sean Kalis who had a little bit of a nifty start to this race, took to the grid in their 10th position. He's getting pushed by the 30 of Michael Kaczynski, challenging down the back straightaway, trying to get ahead of the 94 and get him in. The 43 car is clear for a moment. He'll slide down and take the spot.
A good push that time to get Kalis up to the front of the field. And obviously, they want to try and work together, it seems, since the 30 and the 43 have been nearly attached to the hip since the drop of the green flag. We had a bit of an issue, it looks like, though, in the second pack, where Jonathan Goodell had a technical issue and checked up the second group.
And that's the big thing here. As you can see, the two separate groups at a racetrack. There's some 3 wide at about the tail end of the top 10 in this main group. Really, the only car up top is that 8 of Kyle Kamer. He's all on his own. That kind of light baby blue and white Ford Mustang. He's now tucking in line behind Joshua Bear. No, he'll go right back to the outside. So, he's not necessarily trying to get a third line going. I think he's just trying to keep that nose in clean air and try to stay out of trouble. Whereas those cars who have dropped back, Justin, they're not really, a primary pack and a secondary. Those cars that have dropped out outside of the top 17 or whatever have actually really sprouted along, some of them as far back as 5-6 seconds.
Yeah, that's how much the packs have been shuffled about so far, with some of the drivers saving a little bit, trying to keep back from this lead group with it being 2 and 3 wide. But a lot of the drivers, I think, just want to drop to the back end of the lines at the moment, as well as make sure their temperatures stay nice and cool. If your car overheats, there's the chance your engine will end up expiring if you go above 284 degrees in oil temp. You can go up to about 290 in the red, but anytime you're in the red, there is the chance your car can blow up. The drivers in the front don't have to deal with that with the lead.
Yeah, that 30 car now trying. Kaczynski started on the bumper to Kalis. I mentioned Kalis rolled from 10th. Kaczynski started 12th. So they were the outside of 5 and the outside of 06 respectively. We'll go 3 wide here around some lap traffic. Jonathan Lawrence all on his own. And first car to go a lap down. Still clean and green, 11 laps in to the NPHY.org 200. So basically, Kaczynski had been on the boat for Kalis for the better part of this race, pushed him to the lead. Kalis kind of left him by diving down, but he was the only one clear. And I would suspect if that 42 machine of Morano is able to push the 30 car around, he'll also drop right back down, and the 43 and the 30 would be reunited. But you can see Bogard trying to go to the outside line. He kind of played into Kyle Kamer's moves again. Remember, there was the 8 car only car up top a little bit ago, so there's now 2 of them, not close enough though to really make much of a charge, and the 8 car tucks back to that.
Look who's coming up in that pack, though, on the second line. Daniel Eberhardt dropped to second to last when he had that incident off the turn 4 before. He's charging and fast. He wants to get up to the front of the field once again. He's not going to be keeping it safe, it looks like. He wants to be the leader today.
And if you're just tuned in, he started this race at a very good spot, was in the race lead, got a little bit of a door slam, and as we say that, he will drop back in the 90 cars. You're on board with him, but his race is nearly done when a little bit of contact at the outside sent a car down into him. He got knocked under the apron right there at a turn number 4, basically opposite end of the racetrack, same part of the corner, went down onto the runoff, was able to hang on to it, and has worked his way back through. But there was a lot of movement that was a bit sketchy just in that last time around, where some of those cars on the outside weren't really able to stay in line. You see Morano going way up to the fence, the 23, gonna slide in between. I think this is the kind of moves that scared Eberhardt out of making that charge all the way to the front.
Absolutely, at this point, drivers are shuffling about and having overheating issues, it looks like, some of them. We have, right now, these drivers trying to keep it very safe. I think that's the main thing, because they want to be able to get to the finish of the race. That's the key thing. It's really aggressive racing we've seen for some of the drivers, but at this point, Morano, I think, is just trying to cool off the car, drop to the tail end, and then regroup.
And we'll see if he's able. Look at this now. Team cars dropping out of it. The 94 and the 12. 2 of the fastest cars tonight. Going to go down below the yellow line. Drop back. They do not want to be a part of all of this chaos up front. And it's a little bit sketchy getting back up and onto the racetrack 3 wide. As Cato came back up, the Ollie Ford Gittman's just going to hold it there as an onboard shot with him. He'll just run it around the apron at about 170 miles an hour. That's fine. Now he'll blend it back up. A lot of drivers in the last couple of laps not liking what they're seeing, with the aggressive level at the front of the field, dropping back to get safe. Through all of that, though, Kaczynski did get pushed to the race lead, so as expected, he drops down in front of Kalis. Those 2 reunited. The top 5 cars, though, started 12th, 10th, 26th, 15th, and 17th. A lot of big movers. And Jonathan Cadell in 7th, gridded from P20. Oh, there's contact. The 23 of Baird comes down. He's going to door slam Kalis, and the 43 is into the wall. Just 1 car and no caution.
That is bad luck for Kalis after such the rough start in the good middle portion of the stint. They just got a little bit too dicey. 2, 3, 4 wide down the back straightaway, and the way they were shuffling about, especially when they got right about here, it wasn't going to work. Nieto tries to go through a hole that just wasn't there.
Yeah, that's just not a move that the 2 car needs to make at that spot in the race. Kalis only went down a little bit. He got on the yellow line, of course, not advancing his position, so we're not talking about a penalty situation. But watch this. He's pushing it down the back straightaway. Keep in mind you can't see it because of that A post there. But basically, there's a car on the outside, so you're only working with a very small lane down low, and you'll see Kalis right here go to the left. And instead of following him there, he tries to squeeze it in the middle. There's that car up top, not enough room. And Kalis is the one who gets spun down to the inside. Pretty hard hit. 43's night basically is done. And again, because it was a single car incident, as we go back to the live shots now, there is no yellow. Of course, we stay green.
Yeah, just horrible luck to say the very least there. Dropping him all the way back to 28th position on the racetrack. But at this point, 2 H's cars hooked up 1-2 for the time being. Kyle Kamer takes advantage to be able to be up at the point for the time being. And everybody, after all that, has gotten single file for the time being.
Maybe a handful of close calls will be what, I don't know if scares the field into it is the correct way of putting it, but be scared a little bit, and maybe they'll back off and try to get the distance, because again, we're talking about a 75 lap race. Of course, Justin, earlier this season ran 100 laps at Daytona, so longer distance than what we're seeing in this NPHY.org 200, but it is still a long race that will involve green flag pit stops if we don't have yellows to get to the distance, and of course that means you got to be in it late. You can't win it early, but you can lose it.
Yeah, that's going to make fuel mileage very important for this race. It is looking like a one-stop type of race potentially, if not two. So it's going to be the matter of, if you lead too many laps, you're going to burn a lot of fuel. It's as much as about a gallon or so by leading laps compared to, say, staying in the draft. That's going to make it very crucial. But the top line is forming up once again here, Evan. Jonathan Cadell, he wants to go for a charge.
He is coming up on the outside. That's Cadell, pushed by Kaczynski. They're working on the top side. You can see there's a third car in line behind them, the 23 of Baird, and then a car way up high. It'd be the 86 of Steve Cunningham in some 11th position. He'll drop back down in the green machine and try to avoid making it a third lane. But on the bottom line, it's Kamer, followed by the Nani of Eberhardt. So that, that Nani car was able to kind of sneak through the field here in that little bit of moment of pause and hesitation to get back up front. I think, I mean, nowhere's safe. You could be 5 seconds back, be wrecked. You could be the race leader and get wrecked. But I do think that, if Eberhardt can stay up here in second, Justin, he'll be a lot more comfortable staying than he would be if he was kind of stuck back P10. If he could be out front and control the pace, I think he sticks in it.
Well, just as you say that, Eberhardt ducked to the outside line, trying to get at least some cool air, it looks like. So right now, again, it just is coming down to where you want to be. It looks like Eberhardt wants to try and at least save and get some cooler attempts and regroup that top line and figure things out. Gets the temperatures down, has a space if he wants to get to the bottom, but looks like he just wants the top side.
And some drivers are committed to their spots. On a plate track, I'd like to stay on the bottom just because I feel like I have more escape routes. If you're up top, you got a car on your left-hand side and a wall on your right-hand side. If it gets dicey, very limited options, but some drivers will kind of forego that risk for that advantage of the run on the outside, and you can see it right there. Eberhardt, without support, is going to get passed by Cadell. I'm not sure if Kaczynski is going to clear him. No, he will not. So Cadell comes down and abandons the Nani on his own up top. But now it's Kyle Kamer slow in the middle in that light blue number 8 Ford. He lost his drafting support, and it is an inside breakaway. Nieto, he'll be under fire. It's Mogard to the outside. We got a couple of sets of 2x2 coming. It's Kamer with Eberhardt. They'll swing to the outside, and now they've got all the momentum into 1 and 2.
Everyone's starting a two-car tango just about here at this point, the way they're shuffling about. This is getting really entertaining, to say the very least. But if you are a driver, you're thinking something has eventually got to give, especially since they're starting to reach lap traffic down the back straightaway.
You already saw them a little bit earlier get around Jonathan Lawrence. He was all on his own. Sean Kalis, who made contact with the wall, the next car that they'll catch. They are 3 wide, though. It's going to be a little tight for one of those cars up top. Kalis holds it high, and dropping the parachute out is John Rodden, who had made such a good drive in that FedEx Toyota, started 25th, and it was P7, but because he was 3 wide, there he is there. That 43 was essentially occupying his lane. Remember what I just said about escape options? He couldn't just go down and get out of the way. He had to get on the brakes, and he now drops outside of the top 15 just like that.
Yeah, he had been very committed to try and make it 3 wide and wasn't willing to lift, and now pays the price for trying to get the third line already. Back to 2-line racing just like that, because Eberhardt and Cadell just got shuffled out. Everybody trying to charge their way up to the front, and at this point with the type of racing, it's getting to where drivers, it looks like, just can't decide where they actually want to be in the pack.
And that little bit of hesitancy can hurt you. A lot of the time, it's better to just stick with it. Tom Morano in the 42 car is off the pace. He has dropped down to the apron. I almost thought he was going to pit, but he pulls back up. I mean, he was way slow in turns 3 and 4. I believe he may have had a small connection issue and dropped back. I don't think he was intentionally go to the back of the field, but I was concerned about that, so everything's going to be okay with him. He's back in, no issues, but he does drop out of the main pack. and now he'll find himself in need of some water wings so that he doesn't drown, back in those depths with the car that have dropped out of the lead back. So, this separation, I think, Justin, all this open space, you can see we're 3 wide, sure, but that shot right there, a 3-car breakaway, then some 3 wide. That space is almost more dangerous than if we were just 2 wide throughout the pack. If you're 2 wide throughout the pack, everybody kind of has a role. They can't do much besides push the car in front of them and get pushed from behind. But when you see openings, it tempts guys to make some moves. And oftentimes, the decisions that are made aren't the best ones, especially in the context of being just 23 laps in to a 75-lap affair. Here comes a new face, though. Thomas George, the number 9 Sirius XM Chevy. He's on the outside, once again being pushed by that 30 of Kaczynski, who's been a workhorse tonight.
Yeah, Kaczynski has been very aggressive up at the front, willing to push drivers in the Extreme Performance Motorsports machine. But it looks like he's really dancing his way down the back straightaway. Might be reaching a bit of higher up temps, trying to keep the car cool. Also trying to help the driver up in front in George. It's just not working quite yet, but they will get that run once again down the front straightaway.
And this is where it's key. In the tri-oval, it's going to get a little bit loose and choppy for those cars that are very inside. You can see the 8-car bounce around just a little bit. And for the first time tonight, new race leader to the 9 of Thomas George. Lap led number 1. He'll drop down, and again, poor Kaczynski, who pushed him to the race lead, didn't have enough space to fill the gap. Kamer was there. The 30-car stays on the outside for another run. There was a checkup there on the inside of 2, and I think he's got it on the outside.
Yeah, Kamer really got a little bit squirrely, had to get off the gas off of 2, and when these tires start to wear down with fixed racing, when it comes to the super speedways, you do have to burp the throttle on the entry of turn 3 and on the exit of turn 2 to make sure you don't dance around. Some drivers might also have to make sure, like we talked about, to get off the throttle a little bit to make sure you get over the bumps right here. This is a very rough part of the racetrack. So this is where some of the throttle control gets a little bit important, and that's where, say, what types of tires you take if we got, say, a short pit situation come into play and taking, say, 2 tires or 4.
And we'll see if all of these factors play in if we do get an opportunity to race ourselves through to some green flag pit stops. Again, still early in this race, but once you get 26 laps in, that's 1/3 distance of this race already. Not at all outside of the realm of possibility that 20 minutes from now, you're halfway in this race. But a lot of these moves can be dicey at times, and sure, drivers want to get to the race lead. Michael Kaczynski retaking the race lead, not his first lap led that last time by. I remember he did it with Kalis a little bit earlier before the 43 car had his issues. But in reality, unless you're really, really worried, Justin, we talked about the points with the championship being out of, grasps and being locked up by Andrew Ferdinand tonight, there are still a ton of other battles. So maybe in that context, drivers are hoping for that 1 extra bonus point for leading a lap and another bonus point for leading the most laps. But at the end of the day, those 2 points very inconsequential compared to your actual finishing position in this race. So, you can lead 74 to 75 laps and still finish 20th and not even wreck. That's just how plate tracks work. So it's nice to be able to make the moves, but you would like to think that the more experienced drivers are making the moves early, trying to see what they can do. I'm going to try to go to the front of the field by working on the outside line. It might take me a little bit to figure it out, but I want to learn how that works. Then maybe I drop back and try it on the inside, all trying to figure out your best options, so then when it really matters in that run to the end, you kind of have a toolkit assembled and you have an idea of what you're going to need to do.
And as well, know who you have to work with, whether it's teammates or friends. You want to put yourselves in the best positions to utilize that toolkit as well. So those are a lot of things to think about. You mentioned there about the points, though, Evan, as well, a little bit, I believe, in that conversation in terms of things to fight for. There's no Kyle Trudell tonight, for example. That means Kyle Kamer and Scott McClendon are going to have an interesting fight to decide who finishes second in the championship standings. They came in tonight separated by just 3 total points. Kamer's currently in 8th position on the racetrack. Scott McClendon in 14th. So that's one of the main battles to keep an eye on too, absolutely, in terms of how the rest of the standings work out for the final 2 races of the season.
Yeah, there's a ton of those. You mentioned those drivers separated by 3. You got Sam Nieto, only 5 points back of McClendon as well. Even further down in the championship, Ross Cato, Brian Chambliss separated by 1 point in the standings. Steve Durham and David Washington separated by 2. You got 3 cars with George and Krug and McBride, 3 cars separated by 3 points. I mean, there's a lot up for grabs. And I know that in this winter series, the only thing that really pays out, that gets the hardware literally going home with the trophy, is the champion. But it would be nice in your old-time RSR Icebreaker stats to be able to say, I finished 7th over 8th. I mean, it only means so much. But you can get what you can get out of this, and a lot of these drivers have been competing in RSR competition since this Icebreaker series made its debut back in 2013. So a lot of history for some of these drivers, and I think that's why as this season gets close to the end, still 29 cars out of 43 registered, a good number for late. As drivers start to, drop out in these late races with the championship being decided, I think those that will stick around are those guys that have been here for so long.
Yeah, we're talking about this tonight. 9 drivers have made every single start so far this season. Many others have made 7 or more starts. So this has been a very solid group of drivers throughout 2019-20 who have been committed to competing in these races night in and night out on a weekly basis. Curious to see how things progress as more time goes on and more history continues for the Icebreaker Winter Series and in total RealSimRacing as the wintertime sets up the springtime. A bit of tight contact. Krug nearly hitting the 25.
Yeah, that was awfully uncomfortable with the form machine. It was Bobby Terrilli inside the 51 car up top of Bobby Krug, who leaned on him a little bit. You can see those 2 cars now still side by side down the back straightaway. This fight in effect for 4th position. With those 3 cars ahead on the bottom line of the racetrack. I don't think there was any malintent there. In fact, they're talking about it on the radio with one another now, but that's how quickly it can happen. Things had calmed down just a little bit, Justin. We started to talk a bit about the season and the points and all that, and next thing you know, we were probably another 6 inches away from that car being either lower or the car on the bottom being any higher to a wreck. That's how fast it can get ugly at Talladega. Luckily, it did not, and Bobby Krug's able to do this right now. Fight for the race lead with the push from the 22 with Scott McClendon. He is ahead of Michael Kuczynski. He looks to the inside. Will he make the move, or does he try to bring the 22 with him?
I think you try and bring the 22 with you at this point. They are teammates, mind you, so you want to keep your teammate with them. Now that they're both clear, you'll see that drop right there to be able to control the top 2 positions. Teamwork shown at that advantage of the moment. Some of the drivers at this point got themselves single file because we are approaching the pit window, mind you, to try and get yourself set up for the entry. But when you see that happen, a lot of drivers will say, we've saved enough fuel potentially, let's charge up and get some track position before we duck down to the pit lane. We see some of that now.
Yeah, 32 laps into this race, so 75 on the board. If drivers want to be able to make it halfway home, they're going to get to about 37, 38. Then they would be able to do this, possibly, on a one-stop strategy. But, of course, we have not had any yellows, no times to save fuel at all. Green from the start. Of course, the only incident we've really seen was Sean Kalis, who got turned off to the inside wall. He actually made contact. There was no yellow. It was a scare with Daniel Eberhardt a little bit earlier on. Jonathan Lawrence missed the start. He's a lap down. Tom Morano now also just going to lap down. So 26 of the 29 cars who started this on the lead lap. And Justin, we've actually tightened things up at about 15-20 laps into this race. Those cars that had dropped back, I kind of mentioned how sporadic they were. Some of them were 5-6 seconds off of the race lead. They have all drafted their way back. So the car P26, Kevin Pearson, is only 2.5 seconds off the race leaders.
Yeah, that's how much the pack has been going off and on in terms of pace. They've bounced back and forth between 50.5s to 51-second times, back and forth in terms of that range. When they've gone to the 51-second bracket, that's helped the drivers at the back of the field keep it a one-pack group of drivers. But it's going to be curious to see how these packs break apart when they do duck down to the pit lane, because right now, some of the drivers, they can save, they had been saving, mind you, in terms of going half throttle, say, if you're in the trap, or, say, trying to keep towards the back and trying to go at lower speed. It loses you time, but with checkups that actually help them keep within range instead of losing and sacrificing, say, a couple seconds.
And now you see everybody start to string it out single file down on the inside line. First car up top, no shot. Kyle Kamer, he's been that car so often tonight. Oh, and a close call. Back in the pack, he and Steve Cunningham split. They're 3 wide. Cunningham almost came down on John Rodden and took him out. Again, just commenting on how it was single file. Next thing you know, nearly an incident that kind of formed out of literally nothing. But with everybody single filing out, expect those pit stops to be shortly. Again, 2 more laps to get within the fuel window, Justin. I think at this point, everybody pretty much confident they're going to be able to get at least that far.
Yep, absolutely here at this point. Everyone's just, I think, setting themselves up for the pit window to make sure they can get to the lane. And it looks like, at the very least, a majority of the field might go together here to try and make sure they can split this race right up the middle and not lose the draft of the yard drivers. It's going to be a difficult pit entry, though, because, mind you, there's going to be differences in racing lines in terms of braking points, in terms of the bottom line or the top line. And that, in turn, can mean potential chaos as Krug elects to drop off and goes to the back, giving McClendon the lead.
Yeah, very interesting move by Bobby Krug, because, of course, with everybody being on the bottom, you can't really pit from on the outside line. I guess I should clarify, you shouldn't pit from the outside line. We've seen drivers try it. Doesn't very often work. But Bobby Krug, just pulled up, gave the inside line up, and if he can't find a hole down there, he's going to be in a tricky spot when it actually does come time to get down and execute those pit stops. So he does have support. There's the 86 of Steve Cunningham, who was in that close call just a little bit ago. Now here's more help. Michael Kuczynski to the outside line. So it is not all lost for Bobby Krug. In fact, he'll get a draft down the back straightaway just like that. Clear of the 22 is Scott McClendon. Kuczynski drops in. Krug doesn't want to, though. Might play his cards with the 86.
Well, that was a quick bye-bye and hello, to say the very least. But, yeah, it's going to make it very curious how things are going to shape out here. They are at the halfway point this time by, with 38 laps to go coming to the start of lap 38, meaning these drivers can make it on the one stop.
And of course, as all of this continues to almost now a waiting game, we thought that we had gotten to the cusp of pit stops with everybody single filing out. Next thing you know, we're all side by side and fighting like we were 10 to 15 laps ago. And in reality, it's only those 3. It's Krug, it's Cunningham, and it's Baird. That's the order, the red, the green, and the blue car. Upside 51, 86, and 23, respectively. You do see there's more cars on the outside on that wide shot behind them, but 20 of these 26 cars are lined up on the inside line. At lap number 38, we are halfway home at Talladega. That's the fuel numbers. So here come pit stops. Kuczynski from the race lead. It's only about a quarter of them. Some tight quarters, and I think they all made it. Cadell caught the grass. Man, that was tight.
Yeah, might just barely keep it from an unsafe pit entrance there, but you have to go all the way from the 190s in speed from that point of the track to 55. George overran his pit box. That's not good for him.
Well, he was one of the drivers who was able to get into the box pretty clean, so that's where he's going to lose his time. The big thing at Talladega is you need clean pit stops to be able to get in and out, because you need draft when you leave pit road and get back onto the racetrack. You mess up by 4 seconds and nobody else does, you're not catching those 12 cars in front of you all drafted from 4 seconds back. You need help. And now we'll see if there are more pit stops. Here we go. Scott McClendon, Bobby Krug, your race leaders diving down. Oh, we're backing up on a racetrack. So is into the outside wall, and it is a big mess at pit stops for the first caution of the night.
And it looked like 3 wide as drivers were trying to shuffle about as the cause of that one. As someone tried to go right by Cunningham while trying to stay on the outside of Washington. Keep an eye on this. Washington's on the inside. Someone in the 75. Cunningham's already been dropping back, and he just ends up coming up into the door, and that causes multiple drivers to spin, and this is going to really shake up the running order.
And I think we talked about cars getting stuck at the outside, Justin. I think Steve Cunningham wanted to pit. He made like a move, like he was trying to get down in line or something, and he just didn't have the space. Watch this. Freenage goes to the inside. The Donnie's there. And again, cars are pitting this time right there. It's almost like he tried to go down, saw the 8, because that's the only reason why I could think he was going so slow. Soa didn't plan on pitting, but the 86 was slow. He tried to split the gap, just barely nicked him on the way through, and the 75 got into the fence, then the 86 got tagged, and it really all started there with what I think was a missed pit stop opportunity for Cunningham.
Take a look at this on the onboard of the 75, but you can tell he can see the slow driver in front. I think he was expecting him to go more towards the outside line. Instead, he went more towards the middle, squeezed a little bit, and right there, just nothing he could do once the contact was there except hold on and lock on the brakes, hold on to the ride as he got pinballed around as Ross Cato ends up giving it a shot as well.
So there is the first caution of the night. Here's the onboard shot with Cunningham, and you'll see all those cars on the inside going to by oh so fast. Let's see if he does try to make a move to the inside. I mean, it does walk down the hill a little bit, but there's not a, really noticeable dive. But watch here. He does definitely come down from above the white to below it. He's off the gas. It certainly looks like he was trying to get the pit road.
Yeah, he might have been thinking, I'm going to run out of fuel if I don't come down this time by, and was trying to get to the bottom side and ended up just coming down on top of a race car. We talked about that. Usually you don't want to come in pit from the outside line. Well, that is why.
So it is the first caution of the night, and it is really going to throw a monkey wrench into things because the entire running order has been mixed up as that caution came right in the middle of it all. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. When we come back, we'll re-rack them and stack them for a restart inside of 35 laps to go. At the moment, Sam Nieto is leading. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series on the iRacing Esports Network. Welcome back live to the virtual Talladega Super Speedway, where LSR TV's continuing coverage of the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, that rolls on with tonight's NPHY.org 200. Still pacing under our first, and so far, again, therefore, only caution flag of the evening, with a lot of chaos on pit road in the middle of pit cycles, as us under an extended caution period. So as we try to kind of figure out where everybody else has ended up, we'll help you do it at the same time. And let's take a look at our NPHY.org midway race break. So Sam Nieto still scored as the race leader, and Brian Chambliss will therefore line up in second. Pole sitter Bobby Terrell ends up third, Bobby Krug fourth, and Michael Kaczynski P5. So a lot of familiar names that were already in a good running spot are there as well. Joshua Baird is going to be in P6. Andrew Ferdinand, who we haven't talked about in a little while, up to P7, of course, the six-time winner this year. Daniel Everhart behind in 8th spot. Kyle Kamer 9th, and Steve Durham rounds out the top 10.
David Washington in 11th spot, Eric Stanford in 12th, Michael Mosier in 13th position, with Jared Mogart all the way back in 14th position. He was amongst some of the first drivers who hit in green flag conditions. Steve Cunningham, Galen Gidman 15th and 16th, Jonathan Tellez in 17th, Todd Novosad 18th, John Rodden in 19th, and Kevin Pearson rounds out the top 20.
Cinnamon on through car still on the lead lap includes Thomas George in 21st, Guile Brooks 22nd, Scott McClendon 23rd, and then Steve Soa 24th. Trevor Valderrama also being scored on the lead lap, P25, but that car is pretty torn up. So he may not actually be on the lead lap by the time the field cycles through. We'll see if he pulls out in front in time. So that would leave only Tom Moreno 1 lap down, P26. John Kalis 2 lap down, 27th. Jonathan Lawrence 2 laps down, 28th. And Ross Cato 2 laps down in the number 29 position. That's a look toward the bottom at your NPHY.org midway race break. NPHY is the most comprehensive service provider for the thousands of young people experiencing homelessness in our community, providing access to life-changing services for homeless youth 24 hours a day at virtually every street corner in southern Nevada. NPHY's wraparound programs stabilize young people's lives, meeting their immediate needs and providing a safe, supportive environment and a path to self-sufficiency. For more information, of course, our whole season with this 2020 Icebreaker Winter Series is in support of the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. We encourage you to log on to nphy.org. More information not only on how you yourself can get assistance, but as well on how you can help make a difference in your community. With that, though, Justin, lights on the pace car finally are out, so we're going to go back racing at Talladega. Magic number going to be 31 laps to go. Everybody good on fuel to get there.
And that's going to mean one thing. The aggression level is going to be very high. Once drivers know that they're good on fuel, that means the amount of racing and battling usually picks up at these types of racetracks, and I expect the same thing to be the case here tonight. We've got a lot of hungry drivers looking to get to victory lane and having their best chances to do so tonight. Chambliss, he's been close a couple different times. He's got a chance. Sam Nieto, he's been fast on many different racetracks. He's got a chance to break into victory lane tonight. And don't forget about the rest of the field, mind you, too, at this point, because it's anyone's game, and with this caution, it can mean anyone will try and come up to the front and take home the victory tonight.
Nieto, Chambliss, in theory, have the best chance to do it, but we all know at plate track racing, track position can only help so much. And we saw how much happened in that first stint, so 31 laps to go might as well be an entire additional eternity. Let's see how the second half of this NPHY.org 200 shakes up. Of course, if you missed that rundown top to bottom of the midway race break, that running order scrolling across at the top of your screen. But we'll see what the number 2 Ford has got. It's his field to control. Green flag in the air at lap 44. We're back underway. And in fact, Nieto backed it down a little bit. Got too good of a jump for his liking.
Yeah, he didn't want to pull away too much for the cars behind, because that in turn allows them to get a massive run down the back straightaway to try and make a move on back. However, with the way he started, it's drawn out everybody else. Look how much of a gap there is behind 8th on back.
I mean, they really rocketed out in front. That second half of the field starts with a lot of damaged race cars. The likes of Valderrama, so a pretty damaged 15th and 16th. A lot of those cars. I mean, that incident was a lot bigger, I think, than what we may have given it credit for. There was a lot of cars involved. A lot of cars had to really struggle maybe even before go service just to get back to the lead lap. So we'll see if this 8-car breakaway, maybe plus those 2 behind in Washington and Stanford, can actually make this a proper breakaway and try to run away with this thing.
Yeah, right now, already Chambliss taking that bottom side, but it's going to come down to, again, to who works together the best and who goes full throttle. Some drivers might be going half throttle trying to get to the back of the field. Here's the thing, though. Somebody's got to be up at the front. And this field.
And we'll see as that 50 with Bobby Krug. He's been very familiar with working on the outside line tonight. It's got that 23 of Joshua Baird, Michael Kaczynski. If pinch me if you've heard these names before. They really like working on the outside, and maybe that ties in, to that experimentation that I was talking about. As drivers were, trying to figure out what they can learn and what can work in the early stages of the race, so that they have these tools to be able to make that actual push for the race win when it gets later on. But we're dicing it up at the front of the field. Chambliss on the inside leading that lap, but here comes Nieto. So after he got past it on the outside, it's Mogard to a 3rd lane. So drivers really now mixing it up, and it is still, though, that top 12 breakaway with Mogard and Cunningham following Stanford and Washington through. That it's some 3 seconds back to anybody else.
Honestly, I feel it might be a little bit too early to try and make it 3 wide. Maybe wait until at least a few more laps. Some drivers were already seeing this sign, including some of the Aegis drivers, and saying, what are they doing? So they're just, I think, wanting to regroup. I'm surprised Cunningham's able to keep it up towards the front, though. He does have no front end damage, though, which is a very crucial thing. The back end damage is still going to hurt him, but if it was on the front, it affects so much more than what he's got right now with that 86.
And you can see there's the big speed advantage on the outside line for those 2 leaders. So Chambliss leading at the line, but very interestingly not dropping down to the inside like we would have expected. Quite an aggressive dive by Eberhardt to become that 4th car on the bottom. He's the all-white with the blue numbers, the number 90 machine. But this is not that shocking, because if you take the race lead, Justin, and you go to the bottom, you're probably just going to be passed by the next car to come up on the outside line. So with all of that being said, not a terrible idea, even if you clear the cars on the bottom, to just hold your lane up top. I mean, drivers do that, but I don't know if you're going to be able to play that kind of a track position defensive game, for just under 30 laps. That is still a long way to go, but Chambliss didn't make the dive last time. He's clear this time, and he will, so he'll take over the race lead down low. But again, expect Bobby Krug, once he gets some help, to kind of get right back on it and challenge him for it in no less than a lap, maybe.
Here's the thing when it comes to that as well, though, too. It's a numbers game in terms of how many cars you have in each line. Eventually, some of the drivers behind you, if they get off that top line, for example, the top line's not going to be as quick as the bottom line. So that, in turn, takes away a lot of that advantage you see for many of these drivers, and in turn takes away the defensive part. That's why many drivers prefer, once they get to the lead, to get to the bottom line, to be able to play defense that way, and then, if there's a run, try and come up to the top that way.
Slow car on the inside. That was the number 12 car of Ross Cato. What a fall it has been for him after he was up front and racing for the lead in this one earlier on. He'll now drop to a 4th lap down in a race car that really isn't damaged that badly, but did get a part of the incident, and then unfortunately lost multiple laps trying to get back onto the racetrack as we were pacing around under that commercial break. So, that's another driver who was up front that was mixing it up that drops out of it. So somebody has to take his place. And, Joshua Baird, the 23, is our biggest mover right now, P26 to P8. But, he's kind of been up here. I mean, look at all the names inside of the top 10, Justin. We've pretty much talked about all of them.
Yeah, we have Mogard trying to shuffle around to make it 3 wide. Chambliss, we've talked about. Bobby Krug, we've talked about a little bit. But you also got Kaczynski, who's up inside this top group, too, being very aggressive. Cunningham still in this top group as well. It's getting very dicey as they reach lap traffic again.
Yeah, it is going to be tight here. There's no room. Valderrama on the outside doing his job, holding it high, and Mogard just found a spot in line. Oh, so similar to the incident that we almost saw earlier, where you're on the outside of the third lane, and that's where the slow car is, and that's where the slow car should be. There's nowhere to go, but look at this up front. 3 sets of 2 cars, 3 wide for the race lead. In turn 4, the bottom lane looks like it'll win out for the moment. The outside, though, a lot more closely packed together. Actually, that may be where it is. It also is a bit of shades of that old school tandem racing, Justin, as through the middle, Sam Nieto leads with 51 laps in the books.
A little bit of a push saying, go, my friend, go, from that time from Krug. It's been that type of race tonight, and now it's going to be very difficult to block 3 lanes at once. Let's just say that to control that aero bubble. If you're Nieto, try and block the ones you can control.
And look at the outside now. I mean, they are right up against the outside wall. There's Eberhard all the way to the inside. What a move by the 90 car as he takes to the race lead. Kuczynski almost followed him down. That wouldn't have been good because the 30 was nowhere near clear. But Eberhard goes from top to bottom. He's done that a couple of times tonight, but I don't think he's going to get out of this. And these drivers are racing like it's lap 72, not 52. Absolutely going at it.
And this is what I was expecting when we seen that caution flag and everyone able to make it on fuel, essentially. Once drivers know they can make it, it gets aggressive. Caution flag is out, though, in the second pack.
It's just the second caution of the night, and the car around is Andrew Farinaj, the 88 machine, heavily damaged down in turn number 1. We'll have to take a look at the LSR TV replay. There might have been a bit of contact on this one. You see Farinaj, and then the 54 of Mosier's could come into the picture. There may have been some contact with Scott McClendon right there. And I don't know if there was contact or not, but the 54 certainly came down. Maybe he was trying to block the 22. Maybe he got hit by the 22. But either way, I mean, the 88 of Farinaj is cruising on the bottom, and he got sideswiped.
I think it was as simple as he just misjudged it. Wanted to get into the bottom side. We talked a bit about if you leave a gap, someone will try and take advantage. That time, Mosier seen the gap, tried to duck into it, just couldn't get down at the same time. McClendon was also going for that same gap, mind you, and just ended up mistiming it. Unfortunate for Farinaj.
So a tough break there, as obviously Farinaj, who finally just secured this championship last week, as you mentioned, a 6th win in 8 starts this season. It came into tonight 114 points ahead of everybody else. He is also, by the way, Justin, never finished out of the top 5 this season. It would appear that streak may end tonight, depending on how bad that damage is going to be, but with no back end at all, doesn't seem to be looking very good.
Yeah, that's going to very much hurt him aerodynamically at this point. If you're Andrew, you're trying to at least get to the finish, get the best run you can to this point. But with many of these drivers now able to make it on fuel, it's going to be curious to see who elects to either take tires or elect to go to the back of the field. It looks like a couple drivers electing to take that gamble to go to the rear of the field and take some grip with them.
Yeah, how important are those tires going to be? It's a little bit more than 50% of the field, it looks like, that is dropping down to the pit lane. I see Eberhard, I see Krug. Looks like maybe Washington down there on the pit lane as well. And as you get further back in the running order, more cars coming down to the pit lane. Not necessarily for the fuel. I think as you get to the back of the pack, that's where you get the damaged race cars. So that may be why they are actually coming down to the pit lane. But nonetheless, you definitely saw cars up front decide to come in and sacrifice that track position for the tires. We mentioned the track temps right off of the get-go. It has cooled down a little bit, Justin, to 115 degrees. And, you know, if someone tells you 115 degrees Fahrenheit, that sounds like a lot. It isn't that high compared to a lot of the races we've seen this season. And we also mentioned, again, that plate tracks handling isn't necessarily as important as some others. You certainly want it, but I think with how we saw that those drivers didn't take it easy. I mean, the wreck comes from behind, so it's irrelevant to how the race leaders were driving. But they really didn't look like a group of drivers that were thinking, hey, let's get to the end and then fight this out. So maybe that played into the decision-making as well.
Yeah, get yourself to the back, sacrifice some positions, yes, but for guys like Eberhard, they just sacrificed only about 9-10 positions at the most. And we've seen, with the way the cars have been driving today, you can easily charge your way back up to the front if you so want to. So at this point, I don't mind this call whatsoever from a lot of these cars, and say, may as well just get yourself in position to set up, regroup, and try and see what happens up in front, and give yourself a little bit of extra grip as well, mind you, too.
And let's see now, not that it'll make a big difference, but how many laps come off under this yellow. I think that the reason the last caution flag felt like it took a little bit longer may have been, again, because there were so many cars a lap down, and that yellow came out right in the middle of pit stops, that it took a little bit more sorting than usual. But either way, again, we'll bridge into 20. The cars pitting are not pitting for fuel, unless it is a really finite preference, Justin, that they like how a heavy car race cars handles, over a lighter race car, then maybe that could be a decision. But I think most drivers are making this call because they want the fresh tires for the end. It'll be inside of 20 laps to go. I mean, we've seen sprint races at Talladega in the past. So many of these require heading to RSR overtime. That's still on the table. So I think that this gives drivers, hopefully, an idea to try to settle some nerves.
Yeah, at these type of cautions where you take the deep breath and think about what you're going to do. Plan out your strategy, try and plot where you're going to be at what specific time, and try and get yourself to execute that exact plan. There's a lot of time to think about it too, mind you, because these are about 2-minute and 30-second pace laps. So it's a chance, again, to also maybe get some water, get something to get yourself hydrated and keep yourself focused, because once the 1 lap to go signal is on the track, that's where it's going to become a situation where, okay, we're about to have a crazy finish potentially. It's time to focus and make sure I'm ready to go, because there's going to be a lot of potential moves I have to make.
And of course, this is where those allegiances really have to come into play. If you're 5-6 spots away, even 5-6 rows, to be honest, away from your teammate, and probably with 20 laps to go, drop back a little bit, or somebody go forward, whatever combination of it, you wish, you could probably still have time to get hooked up. But if your teammate's wrecked out, or, your teammate's damaged, you kind of have to make the call now. Who are you going to work with? And, listen, all these drivers are in, for the most part, they have access to separate radio channels so they can talk with one another. You got the likes of Brooks, Rodden, Cadell, Pearson, George, Steelhorse guys, all in one radio channel. McClendon and Krug on a radio with together. We can see that. But technically, Justin, you really don't need that. If somebody starts pushing to be off of the restart, I kind of get that they want to work together. So you can, kind of form a last-minute allegiance if you feel like that's needed. Just kind of on a whim here to get to the end. Now, of course, at every point, that allegiance needs to end. It can be 5 to go, 2 to go, last lap, last corner, whatever. But you can't win this race on your own. You can try, but it'd be awfully difficult. You do need some drafting support somewhere.
Yeah, and that's where, again, it comes to where your friends are where they find them. Or where you find them, rather. Where that's where a lot of the races that have happened this season can potentially come into play, right? Because say you've raced and had some trouble before in the past. That might affect the decision of how hard you try and push somebody if they're up in front of you. So there's a lot of different factors that are going to come in where it's important to show if you race cleanly, there's a chance if you don't have a teammate lined up behind you, you'll have someone who's willing to help you. If you do not have that luxury, good luck.
And with those lights out on top of the pace car, we get set to restart this race, maybe for what could be the final time. But if you look at the history of races at Talladega, I would not hold your breath on this being the final restart of the evening. If it would be, again, it is just inside of 20 laps to go. The second to last race of the season for this RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series. Of course, only one race still to come. It is championship night next Monday for the final timeout for the Winter Series. Monday, February the 3rd from Phoenix. It's a 9 o'clock Eastern start, as always, right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Network. 150 lap contest. Looking forward and hope to see everybody there as we officially crown Ferdinand as the Icebreaker champion. What would not only satisfy and back up his win from the Cup Series title this past year, Justin, but would also again make him a back-to-back Icebreaker champion, going back to the last time this series was run in 2017-18.
It's just been a domination campaign in 2019, to say the very least, from him. He's shown he can win at multiple different types of racetracks, in multiple different types of packages, 750 horsepower and 550 in the Cup car. Shows that with the low downforce in the Xfinity car, he can also dominate. It's going to be tough to stop him in 2020. And he's somebody to keep an eye on, too, once the Road to Pro Series gets together, because, mind you, he might be in some of the top splits for that when it gets underway in just about a month or two.
Getting set for a late race start at Talladega. Front row sees Nieto and Chambliss, and it is another early jump for the 2-car. Green flag back in the air, 57 laps behind us. Now look at the dash behind. We saw that huge gap form last race start that allowed the top 12 to break away. Not seeing that separation. Look at Chambliss to the inside for the race lead.
He got a mega boost that time, and that's the difference between if you get a big jump or if you try and stack it up on a restart at a super speedway. You don't want that big of a jump, and Chambliss took advantage to take the bottom right away from Nieto.
And that was a very aggressive move. Again, the disadvantage for Nieto for getting that jump, but he mentioned on the last time that he backed up because he didn't want to be so far ahead, as, of course, those cars are going to catch you to 1 and 2. That's exactly why I lost the race lead. Look at the move by Kaczynski now. He'll go to the inside. To the outside is the 2-car Nieto. So the 25 at Chambliss going to be split on the inside and the outside. He'll get help from Eberhardt, though. 3 wide at the start-finish line, and somehow Chambliss stayed in front.
Here comes Cameron Washington, meanwhile, up the middle.
Not a lot of room. The 8-car trying to squeeze in as Washington came to his bumper and tried to push him through. Wasn't able to do so. Looked like Cameron thought about going down to the inside, and it is starting to get really dicey. Mid-pack here at lap 59. Kaczynski going to go to the middle line. The 90 of Eberhardt thought about it. Does it go for it? Watch that 30 as they come at a 4.
That takes away the opportunity, mind you, for Eberhardt to try and get to that high side like he looked like it wanted to. But Cameron does have Washington to work with. Washington just left them up to dry in the middle. Up to the top line goes the 8.
Just seems that these cars can't find a line that they could stay in. So Kamer drops back. He gets picked up by Nieto. That white car down to the inside was the 19 of Eric Stanford. So he now ends up 3rd in line on the bottom. With the 30 at Kaczynski still leading up top. No, now the 25 at Chambliss comes up off of the line. He's not going to get help from the 30, but Washington will stick with him. So now it's Kaczynski left out to dry.
Looks like many drivers not willing to make it 3 wide unless they have more than 2 or so cars. And that's going to make it very interesting how the dynamics will be for the end of this race. Because many of these drivers want somebody to work with. They don't want to be too aggressive. 15 to go this time by.
This race now starting to get down to the late stages. There was not that breakaway that we saw last time. 22 cars within a second and a half of the race leader the last time by. Realistically, with 15 laps still to go, all of those 22 cars have got a good shot at this one. But here's Stanford, who made a big move to the bottom a couple of laps ago. He now slides to the outside. He's in front of the 25 of Chambliss. Side-by-side drag race between the all-white cars. Here's Cameron once more on the outside. He really got a good shove by Sam Nieto. Both of those cars from outside of the top 10, but their momentum dies off in 3.
And look at that double zero machine. Mogart charged his way from the mid-10s to charge his way back inside the top 5. He's been wanting to be very aggressive to get himself into the good position to battle. With 14 laps to go, he's trying to help this 90 and try keep the bottom side together.
Yeah, the bottom side is going to be, of course, where you get a little bit stagnant. So you're going to have to be making these more exorbitant moves to the outside or to the very, very outside if we're talking about a 3-wide situation. If you really want to be able to go anywhere, there's Kamer, gets out of line. He wants to be a 3rd lane, so he gets his wish. The 2-car Nieto fills his spot. It's not there, but for the race lead, it's Stanford. He just got clear of Eberhardt, came down across the nose, and he's got P1 now at 62.
And Chambliss just lost his health. Washington helping his teammates. Now they're trying to control the bubble.
Yeah, they're really trying to work both lanes here, but there's a lot of sideways movement up and down the racetrack. And now here's a big mutiny of cars to the outside. Nieto, Krug, the 22 of McClendon, 3 of them all made that drive to the outside, lockstep with one another. It looked really well coordinated. The problem was they made it at the wrong spot on track. Going in quarter entry ain't gonna work. Quarter exit would have been better. Here we go in the back straightaway again. Eberhardt tries to block Bogard. Bogard squeezes on the wall. Can the 98 of Washington get to the bottom? Yes, he does. Eberhardt's car not wide enough, and now he's sandwiched 3 wide.
The top line has the numbers to try and get the run, to try and take away the lead. They just need to keep things coordinated to try and get the run together coming to 12 to go.
And it's really a sketchy situation, but not a lot of the cars, even as, uncomfortable as they can feel right now, you can't drop back. Because if you get out of the top 10, top 15 now, it's going to be a really tall task to get it back, especially when we are racing 3 wide like this. What a scene as they come into turn 2, but is it going to last 11 more laps the next time by? Eberhardt sees a run. He goes and blocks Mogard, slows him down. Mogard's got an opening to the inside. Oh, but he's not clear. He comes over to the nose of David Washington. Both those cars are sideways. And now they're gonna wreck in turn 4.
Caution flag is out. My goodness. Mogart trying to come down 2 different lanes. I think he wanted the middle, just came down too much. Thinking he was going to be clear of Washington, maybe.
We'll be seeing some aggressive moves like that tonight. And, Mogard was certainly clear to the middle lane. Watch that. Clear. He's trying to undercut Eberhardt. And it's just so tough, Justin, to be able to gauge if I'm clear of both lanes. So he made that move with confidence, because if he didn't do it fast, he couldn't have, done a proper lane change, gone to the middle, seen if he was clear down low, and then gone. Because by that point, we saw Eberhardt blocking a racetrack. He would have been there. So he tries to do this in one fell-out swoop. You can see him here. He knows it's coming. He's waiting, and as soon as he clears the middle car, he goes down. That's fine. Right there. He's not clear on Washington. And I thought for a moment that they had it saved, but there were just too many cars still in that pack that eventually they do wreck.
I almost wonder again if he wanted the middle line, not the bottom line, and just overturned it in. What I mean by that is, you're going near full speed, and he might have cranked the wheel a little bit too much, try to carry too much speed, and it just came right down to Washington instead of just staying in front of Eberhardt. It's a tough move to try and get to work, and we've seen what happens when you don't execute it the right way, and now this changes a lot with about 10 laps to go.
It does, because an opportunity for pit stops again. We saw some drivers dive down the last time for tires. Do any do it this time? Looks like one car from the top 15 or 20, and then a couple from the back that are really, I think, just coming in from damaged, because at this point, you have to lock in on track position with 10 laps to go. No opportunities, really, to make a mistake and to be able to jump back from it and have time to remain competitive. We'll take this opportunity, therefore, to step aside one final time. And when we get back, it'll be the run to the end and the race to the checkered from Talladega. It's Daniel Eberhardt in front for the moment, looking for his 2nd win of the season.
Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMary at the line.
And welcome back live to Talladega Super Speedway, where we close in on the end of this NPHY.org 200 round 9 of the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series restart coming up after yet again another late race yellow. In this one, it will put 68 laps of the 75 behind us and get set for a 7-lap dash to the end for what again still could be the final restart of the night. It's also Daniel Eberhardt, first time in control of the field. Green flag back in the air. 26 cars still on the lead lap.
And he took them pretty quick into the restart zone this time, up to 80 miles an hour. So he really tested the patience of some of the drivers already lined up at Stanford here down off of turn 2.
And you can see 2 sets of 2. It's on inside line. Eberhardt being pushed by the Dante to Stanford. Up top, Terrell being pushed by Sam Nieto. But here's where everybody else now drafts back into the picture. And the 4 car on the outside's got the speed. Terrell clear in turn 3, but he can't make the move in time. It was a really short window, and he took too long.
Yeah, he wasn't going to complete that pass with how tight that window was. Now has to try again at this point, but again, up at that front, it's like a pocket of air. It slows you down, having to have some help if you want to get to the bottom side.
You can see the outside now. This time going to be a successful charge, but he gets beat to the punch once more. Nieto goes for the undercut on Bobby Terrell. He was ahead of Eberhardt, so the 2-car leads down low. Terrell still the lead on the outside. Oh, and he's going to get turned. Nieto in front of the field. And at lap number 70, it's the big one as Nieto goes tumbling down the back straightaway.
Wow. Just wow.
It all fell apart oh so quickly. Thought that was the move that the 2-car needed to make. He was fine, and that was it. And just a little nudge by Eberhardt on that left rear quarter panel. You can see there's space. He gets onto the bumper right on quarter exit. The 2 pushes up a little bit. The Dottie goes down right there. Contact, boom, and then again. And when he gets somebody in the left rear, there's almost no hope. And right there when Michael Mosier comes in late is when Nieto gets it again. He goes for a tumble and slides on his lid all the way down the back straightaway.
Yeah, and my thought process is, Eberhardt, why didn't he lift coming off the corner just a little bit? Because that was a very, very tight window, and it just caused the big one. Now, it's going to come down to just a couple laps to the side who can take home the victory because of that massive one.
Well, if this yellow is going to be, a similar distance or length as the other one was, then it is certainly going to get pushed into overtime. And here's a good on-board shot with the car that ended up on his lid. You'll see he goes to the undercut, gets around Terrell, and it's all him on the bottom. You can't really see Eberhardt coming in any of the mirrors from this shot, but watch that white line. See how he pushes up a little bit? And then right there's that second hit. I mean, it's a little bit of up on Nieto's part. It's a little bit of down on Eberhardt's part. And I agree with you that if that push car lifts, that doesn't happen. But I think that these drivers kind of accept a little bit of wiggle room where, listen, I'm not going to be lined up all the time. And this will be the best shot here to just kind of stick with it. Also listen in. Let's see if Eberhardt gets out of the throttle at all. But watch how quickly it all happens.
And he never even lifted. Never got off the throttle there. So if I was him, I would have at least lifted a little bit because there's the thought process of he's not going to the top. He's just sliding up a little bit because he was one of the drivers who had stayed out before. So the grip isn't going to be there. It's going to push you up the track. And remember, Eberhardt has that 10-lap tire advantage in that situation.
He does, and the onboard shot showed you that he didn't lift. And, we had seen a couple of incidents earlier tonight, Justin. I should also, Sam Nieto's night done, as he has taken it to the garage. So he's not even going to try to get it repaired and get anything out of this one. So his night is done. you know, we've seen some moves tonight on that back straightaway. It's funny that a lot of the wrecks happen on the only really straight part of the racetrack. But, you know, where cars try to make a lane where there really isn't one. I honestly don't believe that Daniel Eberhardt was trying to get to the inside of Nieto. I honestly believe it was just a little bit of those bumpers not lining up and the contact. But it's late in the race, so I wouldn't be shocked if it turns out it was really moved. That's not what it looked like to me. But, you know, for those incidents that we saw of that nature in earlier, you know, wouldn't be shocked at all if you know, either that was the cause of that or if we still maybe see another incident like that later.
I mean, at this point, we're at the situation where at the very least it's going to be about 2 laps to decide it. At the minimum, at this point. So, it's the matter of if it goes to a GWC or if it goes in terms of a natural 2-lap shootout. So at this point, we're going to see a lot more craziness because for these drivers, it takes a lap to get up to full speed. And then the final lap, we might see 3-4 wide down the back straightaway.
And of course, if it gets to that final lap, this race is official. It's no holds bar. Whatever happens, happens. And we're going to race this thing out to the end. So it does appear, I mean, we're going to be around the cusp, but there is no more of that 1-lap shootout that we used to see. If it does get down to that point, it will advance. So I can basically guarantee that it's going to be a 2-lap shootout to the end, because if the lights went out on top of the pace car this time by, it would be, you know, 2 anyways. So we're going to have 2 laps to go up if it's in regulation or if it's in overtime. You know, is really just housekeeping notes. It doesn't matter. It's going to be 2-lap dash to the end. Either way, you cut it up.
Yeah, that's again going to really play into a factor in how this shuffles about at this point. I really don't know how this is going to end up playing out for some of these drivers, just the way this race has the potential to flow here, because you've got teammates up the front in 3 of the top 5 positions for ages, but for others, you don't have those friends around you at the moment. Terrell, one of those drivers. Cunningham, he's a +9. So those drivers are in a situation where you need to be able to get in front of those types of cars and hope they work with you and not try and split you.
So the lights on top of the pace car stay on as of that last time through. So again, this one is going to be pushed into overtime. And of course, you know, if you tune in with us occasionally or have watched, you know, through last year with the Cup Series and into this Winter Series, Cup Series regulations for last year only had 1 attempt at a green and white checker, as that was all new to the iRacing service. That will be updated for the 2020 season, which, in fact, a lot of info on that's going to be coming out this week. So encourage you to follow the LSR TV Twitter at LSR TV, also at RealSimRacing, to make sure you can get all the info on that so you know how to watch and also how to get into it if you want to compete. But it is 3 attempts for all 2020 RSR competitions. So up to 3 attempts at a green and white checker to finish means that we could still have a bit of racing here still to go, at least time-wise, you know, by the time you get through a restart and cycle under the yellow and, you know, get everybody lined back up.
Yeah, because again, it takes about a full lap to get up to speed, yes, but as we've seen many times, drivers have been willing to try and fight side by side on the back straightaway in trying to see if they can get the lead. So wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of aggression at that point, even in how we've seen this race play out in the past 20 laps or so. Going to be a wild one, to say the very least, to finish this off.
We'll see right here if the lights are going to go out on top of the pace car, or if we do have to cycle 1 more time around. The drivers, funny enough, get a heads up before Tower does. They'll get the 2 to go. And we just kind of have to wait and see on the lights on top of the pace car. So, you know, we'll see if that's how this thing shakes out. Lights on top of the pace car are out. And there is the note from up top that this race will be extended for a green-white checkered finish. So we will come around next time to take the green flag. That will be 2 laps to go. If we make it around a whole lap to get to the white, that race is official. If a yellow comes out before that, we've got 2 more tries after this.
It's going to be anyone's race at this point. I know we've said it a couple times, but now it is 100% anybody's race. It comes down to if there's any potential trouble, if you have someone to work with, and if you're able to get the right run at the perfect moment coming to the start and finish line, because it is a long distance through that tri-oval all the way towards the stands off the run to turn 1, this is going to be potentially one of the best finishes of the season to date.
Daytona was an exciting one. I mentioned it off at the top. The only other plate race we've seen so far this year, Nick Holslander won that one. Would go on to get a couple of top 3 finishes and seemed primed to challenge Andrew Fernandez for a championship, but unfortunately was not able to commit to competing for the full championship. And that was probably would have been Fernandez's biggest foe, as he was able to pull and get to that major points advantage that mathematically locked up the championship for him. It looks like that tonight may be the first time he doesn't finish top 5, but Justin, he's P7, so I know it's going to be tough for him to win with that damage, but I thought Fernandez might not even get to the end, so for him to be P7, he's still got a chance of maintaining that top 5 and top 10 streak.
As long as he doesn't have significant engine damage, he might have a shot, yes indeed. But here's the thing. Damage is usually a signal for some drivers to say, I don't want to work with you. Let's drive around because I want to work with somebody with no damage. That might be a situation that could hurt Cunningham as well in this start.
His car going to dive down to the safety of pit road, and Bobby Terrell going to search for his Icebreaker Series win. A return that would be many years in the making. It's the 4 cars field as they round through the tri-oval. Green flag back in the air. Green, white checker. 2 laps to go.
And a few drivers didn't go and claim McClendon. They're stacking up on the bottom side, already 3 wide at the top of the corner.
Yeah, that's the car of the 11 Rod and trying to get up to the outside to find a way through. Kyle Brooks at a 71 with him. Not going to happen with limited time. Expect drivers to not want to sit around and play that 2 wide game of the pack. They're going to make a 3rd lane fast. In fact, they're 4 wide, a little bit further behind. But the race for the lead sees Terrell atop Stanford. Now he'll move to the outside into turn 3.
And now the 2 teammates working together here. Stanford, though, pushing up the hill a touch.
He did slide up a little bit, but there's the run. He's not clear yet. Thought about it, now moves down. Eric Stanford looks for the white flag. There's a lot of 3 wide behind, even 3 wide in this pack with the 10 of Steve Durham on the very outside. But this race is going to be official. 1 lap to go.
It's going to be the matter of who takes home the checker flag. This is going to get very dicey, to say the very least, with so many drivers looking to fight. Might see 3 wide down the backstretch.
Look at the 90 car of Everhart. He's the one primed to challenge. Pushed by the 86. There's a lot of wiggling. Oh, in contact. The 4 is going to get tagged by Washington. A majority of the top 5 wreck on the back straightaway. Only 2 cars remain. Then a 3rd car in line behind them as they're flipping behind. The 3rd car is Mosier. So it's Stanford 1, Everhart 2, Mosier 3rd. He's not going to get close enough. It'll be decided amongst the 19 and the 90. Here's Everhart to the outside. Stanford holds the bottom, side by side, going for the win at Talladega. Contact, it's too close, and in a dead heat, Daniel Everhart wins by 0.0001 seconds to the 10,000th.
My goodness, what a way to win a race, to say the very least. That came down to the wire, to say the least. Everhart got the run up on that top line, but Stanford tried to use the door to get the bump.
You gotta watch the slow motion because this is gonna be considered unofficial. Our scoring says 0.000. The official timing only goes to 1/10,000th. It's Stanford in the foreground, Everhart far. And man, is that about as tight of a finish as you will ever see. Literally on timing and scoring, Justin, a tie. So we'll have to wait, and we'll trust that it's correct for now. But that will certainly have to get reviewed just to be certain who wins this race. But the timing and scoring in a tie says that it's Everhart.
Yeah, that has to be one of the closest finishes we've ever seen, if not the exact closest finish in the history of RSR competition. My goodness.
So close to the end. They were beating and banging. Eberhardt timed it just right. Mosier almost snuck in from third to take that spot away. Wasn't able to do so in the end. Here's where they beat and bang. Stanford saw him coming, tried to move him up, and he came back late. But it is just, oh, so close. I think, though, that is correct. And Daniel Eberhardt, upon what'll probably be an extensive post-race review, is your winner in the NPHY.org 200. We'll take its opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll go post-race, talk with your top finishers, and get you set for a Phoenix finale. Hopefully, also, we do have a official confirmation on who wins this one in that dead heat. But it's Daniel Eberhardt for the second time this year, winner in the Icebreaker Winner Series. We'll talk to him next at Talladega.
Because here comes Holgate. Yes, the outside line through the final corner for the final time. Once again, photo finish here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Holgate? It's going to be Christopher DeMary at the line.
And back live for the virtual Talladega Super Speedway. There it is upon a official photo review, as the timing and scoring had it in a dead heat to the 1/10,000th of a second. It is Daniel Eberhardt in nearly a draw who wins the NPHY.org 200 as we welcome you back into LSR TV's coverage for the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series. We'll talk to the drivers involved in that incredible finish in just a moment, but before we do so, let's take a look, Justin, top to bottom at tonight's full race results. So Eberhardt gets the win, and you can see it there. That score will give it by 1/1000th of a second. Atop Stanford, who comes home second. Michael Mosier, P3. We'll talk with all of them in just a moment. Guy Brooks comes home fourth, and Jonathan Cadell finishes in the number 5 position. Steve Durham comes home 6th. David Washington 7th. 8th position, Joshua Baird. Galen Gidman 9th, and Kevin Pearson P10.
Steve Soa coming home in 11th position with Brian Chambliss in P number 12. Andrew Freenosh not able to keep the top 10 streak alive, finishes in 13th. Jared Mogart, he was a contender for much of this race, but ends up being involved in one of the incidents in the late going, finishes in 14th. Scott McClendon in 15th, John Rodden in 16th. Bobby Terrell on the last lap involved in a major incident. He drops from the lead pack to 17th. Kyle Kamer finishes in 18th, Kuczynski in 19th, with Todd Novosad rounding out your top 20.
And then continuing on through again, all of these cars, pretty much the ones that wrecked on that last lap. Trevor Valderrama 21st, and Bobby Krug in 22nd. Lap down cars, Steve Cunningham 23rd, Thomas George 24th, Tom Morano P25, Jonathan Lawrence 26th, Sean Kalis 27th, Ross Cato 28th, and miraculously through all of that, the only driver to not get to the finish, the DNF will go to Sam Nieto, who finishes in 29th position. That's a look top to bottom at your NPHY.org full race results. Let's go trackside to RealSimRacing Victory Lane, where we're caught up with Daniel Eberhardt's second win of this 2020 campaign. But Daniel, man, I think that one had a bit more flair than Auto Club. What a dead heat to the finish.
Holy cow, I cannot believe this, man. That was fun, and I love plate racing, and right there is why I love it. And to do it with your teammates, that, man, I just cannot believe it. I was screaming all the way to the start-finish line because I thought Eric, if he would have held the bottom instead of door banging me, I thought it was going to be, him. But even either of us, man, it was just crazy.
I think that'll go down, and we can double check as the closest finish in RSR and in LSR TV history. My time it in scoring showing 0.000, basically implying that it was a total draw. Time it in scoring for the broadcast, at least giving it to you by 1/1000th of a second. But we came back from commercial with a shot of it. I mean, it is a dead heat. If the time it in scoring told me Stanford did it, I don't know if the photo would be able to overturn it. That's how tight it was. But it wasn't just you two on that green-white checkered until they all started making a mess of the back straightaway. Just tell us through that whole restart and 2-lap run to the end.
Well, first off, I want to say sorry to Sam. I thought he was going to go high, so he left me a lane, and I went to the bottom, and I tried checking up and clipped his left rear and caused that big wreck. I didn't mean to do that, and, I care about all these guys I race with, and it's all a pretty good show. But now on to the green-white checkered. I felt like Bobby had a good restart. I felt like I had a pretty good restart. And I knew if he would have went before the green, right when the pace car came off, I thought he was going to be a sitting duck. And he did the smart thing. And then I look in my rear view and see that the 86 has a run. I tell Eric to come up in front of me. And when he comes up, it gives him a shot to the lead. And I said, just take it. I like seeing other people win sometimes more than I like winning, unless it's Andrew, because he wins so much. But, yeah, I thought that we would have made it, and we made it to the white flag. And then it was just like, okay, and then you got to be selfish. And going down the back straightaway, I see the 4 get wrecked, and it's like I look behind me and there's nobody left. And then I'm like, okay, well, then you got to be smart about it. And then I ran all the way against the wall, and then about halfway through the corner, I shot down because it would give me about a half a car length in between me and Eric. And I just had a big enough run down the front straightaway. I didn't think I was going to get him. By no means. I thought if he would have held the bottom and I would have got closer to him, he would have pulled me coming out of the tri-oval.
You'll become the only driver, in addition to Andrew, to get multiple wins this season, as I mentioned, backing that one up from just 2 weeks ago at the Auto Club Speedway. With the championship out of the picture, the thing that we said off at the top of the broadcast was that all that mattered were these 2 checkered flags left. That's all that was to fight for. And you and Eric certainly did tonight with an incredible finish at Talladega. With only 1 race left to go this season, what are you looking forward to in Phoenix?
I'm not a big fan of Phoenix. I hate to see that NASCAR went there in real life, and it was kind of depressing when I seen that we were running there at the end of the season. But it's fun following kind of the ending of a NASCAR season, and that's what I look forward to. But Phoenix is it's weird because it's like real line sensitive. It's a line sensitive track, and I've just never been a real big fan of it because the old Phoenix with the dog leg down the back straightaway, I liked it. But this Phoenix, it's like you can drive all the way down to the wall and cut the corner, and it's real different.
And we'll see how it closes off the Icebreaker campaign next week. But as the race winner tonight from Talladega, Daniel, who do you want to say hi to?
I want to just say thank you to Andrew, Kamer, Steve Durham, especially Eric. I feel like Denny Hamlin and Matt DiBenedetto at Bristol. I didn't want to take the win away from somebody like that, but you got to go for it. It's just nature, and I got to thank Dave Washington, and I got to give a big shout out to Fast Forward Esports. They've kind of just jumped on our little bandwagon we got, and Galen Gidman and Ross Cato. It's fun having them as teammates this year, and I also got to thank you guys. You guys do a wonderful job each and every week putting on the series and then also putting on this broadcast, and I got to thank my beautiful fiance sitting at home watching each and every week, and I got to thank the good Lord above.
We appreciate you being in this series and participating on Monday nights. Daniel, congratulations on what was a finish I'm sure we'll go back to watch for many months and years to come.
Yeah, you better send it into the top 10.
Well, we'll make it happen. Daniel Everhart, your race winner from Talladega. Daniel, we'll catch you next week.
Thanks.
I think that's a surefire one to get in, Justin, into those top 10 of the month. And on the other end of this, you have a driver who finished the race in the exact same amount of time, but ends up second. Your trackside with Eric Stanford.
Yes, indeed, Eric. A crazy finish. The closest finish in the history of RSR competition. Your perspective in terms of that fight to the checker flag.
I don't know. I thought I had it. I probably should have swerved a little bit back and forth to try to break the draft, but I didn't. Figured I could get him if I just stayed in the lane. I thought for sure maybe the 54 behind me was gonna. I would have picked up a little draft off of him, would have pushed me in front of him, but didn't get anything off of it. But I'm happy with the second.
Yeah, he actually, Daniel Eberhard had talked about there was a little bit of that door bane, and that kind of gave him the angle that ended up being that very tiny difference. Was there a reason for that slight push-up instead of riding the bottom, as you said there? Or was the preference?
Just having a little fun with Dan.
Having a little fun.
Maybe pushing up into him, I might have rocketed me in front of him a little bit, but it did the opposite for me.
Okay. Hey, overall, though, how would you describe how this race went for you and your team tonight? Because a team 1-2 in a very close finish such as this looked to be fairly impressive.
Yeah, we just do the same thing we do every time we come here. Just ride around, try to keep the cars clean, and towards the end of the race, get to the front. It's unfortunate for Dave and Andrew and a few of the other guys. They got caught up in the stuff a little earlier in the race. That's just the biggest thing, is keeping the car clean.
Next race is at Phoenix. Your thoughts on that racetrack to finish off the season to try and get that last checkered flag?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's not one of my strong tracks, so especially with this new tire model, it makes it a little harder. Car likes to stay loose a little more, but we'll go there, we'll give her hell, and see how we do.
Anyone you want to thank before we let you get going?
All the guys over the ages: Dave, Andrew, Daniel, Kyle, Steve, Dylan, Galen, Ross.
Thank you very much for the time, Eric.
Thanks.
That was Eric Stanford coming home in second. Evan?
And we'll continue on down through the running order and catch up with the driver of the number 54 machine, Michael Mosier, who gets a career-high finish tonight from Talladega Superspeedway. Michael, congratulations on the win. And admittedly, with some of the contact in an earlier incident, wasn't sure that that Monster Energy 54 car was going to make it the distance. But next thing you know, green-white checker, big wreck on that last lap. And for a second there, it looked like you might have been able to swipe it and steal it.
Yeah, first of all, I have to apologize for Andrew for that earlier incident. I didn't mean to get into the back of him. Feel bad for that. Really thought I was going to be the bridesmaid there. I was hoping the 90 and the 19 would get together and I'd be able to sneak by. But a third's like a win for this team.
I mentioned best finish for you so far this season. It came into it, tonight with a couple of limited starts, but certainly speed in practice, working with your teammates. And I know that kind of got diced up after that incident, but just tell us how you were able to work your way back through the field, even to just be in position, to be that close at the end.
Just taking advantage of the pit strategy and the cautions, the way they fell. It sucks that Trevin and Steve got taken out earlier in that wreck about halfway through, but just kind of lone wolfed it, picked the fast line, stuck behind Andrew for a while there, and he was able to carve some good paths for me.
You mentioned those two, of course, running a team operation this year. This will go down as your first top 5, first top 10 in real sim racing competition. We all know that you come to the plate track and it is, that opportunity to be the great equalizer. But, for the second to last race of the season, what does it mean for you to be able to get this result?
It feels like, a normal Talladega race. You just never know what's going to happen. It's a big momentum boost. Phoenix is a tough track. It's going to be hot, going to be slick. New tire model is going to be interesting. But it's really a win for subpar racing here. For myself, Steve, and Trevin, we work as a team everywhere we go and finish high as a team. And, sometimes we don't.
It's a hard-fought night. We'll let you get out of here and maybe celebrate with the team as well. But before we do, Michael, anybody else you want to say hi to?
Nope. Just want to say thank you to you guys. You guys do an amazing job and provide some fun racing for us.
Tell you what, we appreciate you and the whole team being in the series. Congratulations on the P3, and hopefully you and the guys can close it out next week. We'll catch you at Phoenix.
See ya. Good night.
Your P3 finisher tonight from Talladega, Michael Mosier in the number 54 machine. Big thanks to Mosier, Eric Stanford, Daniel Eberhardt, our top 3 finishers, as always, for chatting with us. And I think Daniel said it best, Justin, that that's probably a shoe-in to pick for one of the top 10 clips of the month on the iRacing service. Literally can't have a finish any closer. My scoring says a tie, a dead heat to the line, an absolutely a ridiculous finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that being a top 10 for iRacing for the month as well. Absolutely. And be probably one of the top 5 finishes in the history of all RSR competition. What a way to finish things off here at Talladega. We talked about this a little bit. We were expecting this type of drama and finish, and it definitely delivered tonight, Evan.
And of course, it would be a great way to cap it, but we still got one more to go, and that is at Phoenix next weekend for the Phoenix Raceway final race of this Icebreaker Winter Series campaign. As mentioned, Monday, February the 3rd, 9 Eastern start here on LSR TV and the network, Justin. And in following with the NASCAR Xfinity Series, Phoenix takes over the season finale date for this series as well. We've seen these cars on that track. That's not going to be the difference maker, but we haven't seen it in this context before.
Yeah, it should be an interesting race, to say the very least, to see how drivers are able to handle the track and how much patience there is. Mind you, with that track, the track temperatures can get very hot, so tire management going to be very crucial when we get to Phoenix.
And we look forward to catching you there as well. But until next time, that's it for us here tonight from the high banks of Talladega. Of course, encourage you to stay up to date with everything LSR TV by logging online with us at RealSimRacing.com, as well at Facebook.com/LSR TV official, and on Twitter at LSR TV for more. I'm sure you'll see a lot of clips of the end of that race as well. As we step aside, we'll leave you with a replay of that last lap one more time. as well. But for our entire team and for the broadcast crew tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince, and Rennie Chenet downstairs, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Daniel Eberhardt, winner tonight at Talladega. We'll catch you next Monday, February the 3rd at Phoenix for the season finale. That race and every race of this 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winner Series can be found right here at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network.